Here we are. We are live.
The broadcast is live.
There we go. It's weird that it says the broadcast is live to everybody but the host. To the host, it says you are live. I don't know.
Right, because it's your broadcast.
But like, there's not other people on. I just find that odd. I would think it would say, both. It would say it would make sense to say the broadcast is live to everyone. It would seem, even the host, but I guess not.
Mm-hmm.
We've got recovering Paulo here.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how long he can last.
Yeah. No, it was good on Wednesday on the Graphic Man show. I did a 5-minute presentation. I'd start coughing after 1 minute, and then it took me half an hour till I could talk again.
Oh boy, what fun. What fun that is.
But I am better. I mean, my sick leave ends today, so I'm getting back to work tomorrow.
Okay. I got a new, this just happened, a new sketchbook that I'm going to complain about the binding on. Zen Art Supplies. The book itself is pretty good. And what's weird is that I think it's a sewn and glued binding. Because as I open it up, I can see the strings. So it's obviously sewn, but it's got some glue in there too. So it almost opens up all the way. It's pretty good, but this is one of the reasons I like spiral bound sketchbooks best over the years. Just because spiral bound ones just open up.
Mm-hmm.
These ones, you have to. I've been using where is it? Especially in the beginning, I've been using this big bulldog clip to hold it open. But otherwise, it'll flip shut, especially like at these beginning pages, especially when all the weight is on one side. It's really tough to draw when your book is shutting on you. Which is why you also usually like drawing in flat pieces of paper.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, I also love buying sketchbooks. And I've got more sketchbooks than I've got, I've got a bunch of blank ones over there, and I still got this new one. Just for the heck of it. I'm doing some Gatsby sketches in it. I often give certain tasks to certain sketchbooks. Like I don't have a general sketchbook. I have like, all right, this sketchbook is for my ink drawings. This sketchbook is for my message tee drawings. This sketchbook could be for anything. This sketchbook, I do have one sketchbook that could be for anything, but not always. I have one sketchbook that I work in when I want to write and draw on the same page, and which is like 6 times a year. So that one's been around for a decade. And it's got like 40 pages filled in it. Artists and their sketchbooks.
Yeah, we used to have a type of sketchbook / notebook. Mm-hmm. The binding was stapled, but it could be used for doodling as much as for the official accounting of any corner store.
All through most of my like college years in my 20s, I carried around. Have you seen those? They're kind of everywhere. Those black hardbound sketchbooks. It's just
not sure.
Where is one? They're just here's an old one. They come in all sizes. This one's 8.5 by 11. They're hardbound. I always name my sketch. This is where I first started naming my sketchbooks. Necrosis, that one was. I'd open up a dictionary to a random page and name my sketchbook.
Yeah, I thought you'd be going through a metal phase.
and it's like I carried these for years until I realized I really didn't like them because they didn't always. Oh, this one, the spine is well broken on because they didn't always open up all the way, kind of thing. And I never seemed to finish one. It's that there's probably blank pages, there's blank pages at the end here. Because I was like, I was always bored with kind of the sketchbook before the sketchbook was filled.
Yeah, you should see what I do with notebooks. Because the good thing about covering automobiles is that every time I went to a press conference, I always got a new notebook, which is usually something cheap. Sometimes they give me one that's actually looks expensive, but usually something cheap. So, and I would usually only need half a page, 1 page of it for that specific report. So now and then they start piling up. But when I started covering racing events, that's when I finally started using them. But I had like 10 or 20 on my desk. Which one did I pick up? Yeah, this one.
I used to carry around. Well, first of all, this is like the early 2000s, before cell phones, before iPads, before all that stuff. They used to have these little digital assistant things. Well, I can't remember what they're called. But they were pretty crappy and pretty expensive. And I think my friend Rob had one. He liked his, but they were like, you have this little plastic pen you poke at them with and do stuff. They were like the first digital assistants in the early 2000s. And I was thinking about getting one. I'm like, I want to. So it actually, I was, and they probably went for $300-$400. So, a lot of money for a freaking little thing that you enter phone numbers on or whatever you're going to use it for. So after months of looking around and seeing what ones were good, and I ended up settling on, you know what, I should just carry one of those 69-cent pocket notebooks. If I need to write something down, it's in my pocket. So that's what I did for years. In my back pocket, I carried one of those 69-cent pocket notebooks, and worked fine for me. So did you read any comic books when you were homesick, or
kind of? I took the opportunity to become acquainted with that Corrigan I showed the other day.
Okay.
So, this collection is pretty interesting. This publisher was short-lived, but they had an interesting output. They started in the late 70s, and by the mid 80s, they were gone. Okay. Of course, it was the same people that were in charge of other publishers. So, but this was one of a specific collection, only with comic strips, and since this is number 11, it's got a listing of all the ones that they published. So I think you can recognize most of the names.
Dan Barry, I saw there.
Yeah. So there's Mandrake. Garth was a
Rip Kirby.
Garth was a famous British comic strip, science fiction.
Okay. And Kirby, Flash Gordon, Cisco Kid.
Cisco Kid was done by an artist called José Luis Salinas. Kutu was a Spanish comic strip, but Jesus Blasco also worked for the British industry.
Okay.
And a few others, more Garth, Johnny Hazard, which is how I knew that Frank Robbins actually knew how to draw.
My friend Ed has an original Frank Robbins Johnny Hazard strip in his collection. Mandrake, Corrigan.
This one, and the next one was going to be the Phantom. I think this lasted for about 22 issues. I'm not sure if they were available in the newsstand. Here's the thing: the cover to this, it's made out of pieces of the original art.
Huh.
And it's not just traced; it's blown up. But it's because it was colorized. It's signed by the color painter here, which is a local production, Augusto Trigo.
I'm trying to think of what was it called? Nemo? There was a black and white magazine that reprinted comic strips that ran for years over here at comic shops only, I think. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was wider distribution, but I think it was called Nemo. Not 100% sure, but I always kind of wanted to pick some of them up, but I never did. But they would just get, sort of old comic strips and run them in a magazine, just like that. But they did it for years and years, and it was around for a lot. They put out maybe 2-3 issues a year. And I always kind of wanted to get into it, but I never did. Now it's like a golden age of comic strip reprints. You can get tons of stuff.
But the thing about those reprints, the good thing about collections like this one, you get a nice set of stories.
Yeah,
they're sort of random, they're from a period, like, let's say this ones were published between 1967 and 69, or this one are 4 select stories, one from 75, one from 83, and it's kind of nice reading like that because they're not supposed to have that much continuity. Sometimes there are references to previous strips, but since they were done in a way because you might not read the same newspaper every day, and they need to make sure that each 3 or 4 panel strip was an interesting read.
Right. So
it's not like they're heavy on continuity. There's nothing they're saying. See issue whatever published in May 26, 1984. They don't say that. So yeah, reading these randomized, it's a lot better than starting from the beginning. I don't feel like you should start from you should need to start from the beginning when it comes to strips.
Right. I know what you mean. And I'm a big fan of anthologies in general. Evening. He can at least talk now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of anthology comics too, like Dark Horse Presents. I like a little of it. I mean, I know most people don't like them because they want to like every story. That's the complaint I hear from people who don't like anthology comics. Why pay for a comic? Why pay for a comic when you're not going to like half of it? Which I understand. You can talk, but I can understand. But I'm okay with because I like to try new and different things, but not everybody does. I've certainly learned that over my lifetime.
Yeah, what I like about that's what I like about anthology comics. It's trying different things, especially if they're different genres, but they're in the same comic. So of course that the reading experience is not going to be the same.
Right.
But it's not about getting maximum enjoyment about everything, and it's that idea that you're supposed to get maximum enjoyment out of every comic that you read. While it makes some sense from an economic point of view, because you want to maximize your enjoyment, but it's not the same thing because you're never going to read the same thing in the same way.
Yeah, Comic Crack's an anthology comic fan too. We've seen that in his stuff.
Yeah, I remember he's done a couple of videos on his Cheval Noir collection. I think that's a great anthology comic. It's a great way for Americans to get in touch with Europeans, and the fact that Dark Horse was behind it.
And maximum joy. When you mentioned that, it also brought to my mind how I sometimes say this is a B-level comic, and that's okay with me. I can buy a B comic, just because not everything can be A. So it's okay. B's are okay. I don't want all B-level comics, but I can have a few of them. It's no problem.
Yeah, I think some people try to deceive themselves in order to like something. Say, this is the best comic I've ever read, and I love this. I love this series, and this series is the best. Are you sure? Yeah, you can see this was a good read.
Pfizer and Jansen, where's Moderna? He had a friend die on him, so he's not. One of his friends died, so he's not feeling it tonight, so he's taking a week off. Scott, so send him your condolences. Yeah, it's a little sad when a friend dies. No fun.
Yeah, last month a personality in Portuguese comics died.
Yeah,
he wasn't an author. He was a
Drawn in Quarterly. That one's a good. Centrifugal Bubble Puppy. Never read that one. Ripoff Press Cheval Noir. Many anthologies growing up. Yeah, I would buy them whenever I could. I liked them. I've got every issue of Dark Horse Presents because it was on my pull list from issue 1. All 3 volumes.
Yeah, there's a couple of Portuguese collections that now I would love to have. But here's the thing: we don't have a market set up for back issues, and well, I'm sure I can find loose numbers here and there. It would be very hard to do a complete collection of that anthology. Too many issues, and whoever bought those if they have complete collections, they're not selling them. And if they only bought 1 or 2 issues here and there, the most likely outcome is that they were thrown out.
Yeah, damn yes, best thoughts and columns to be. Yep. And speaking of back issues, I actually got a back issue this week.
Ooh.
Shock of all shocks! Let me open it up for you. Palookaville #1. I finally got. Boy, it's thin. It's only 24 pages newsprint, so it feels really thin. And I had like from 3 on of this. I started it like somewhere around there. And this is one of those comics that people on eBay want to be worth $200. I often see it on eBay for like the cheap end is usually $30. And the expensive end is usually $200-300. But nobody buys this for that much. Like I've said it before, nobody who wants Palookaville #1 wants Palookaville #1 for $300. It just doesn't happen. I mean, it just doesn't happen. Yeah, it's a good one. Now I only need issue #2. So I saw this, I think with shipping was $14, right? Or $13 or $14. So I was fine, and I've been looking on this one on eBay for every now and then. I'll go on eBay and look for it. For years I've been looking, and it's never been a priority. Just because I actually have this version of it, the 10th anniversary version, which is smaller but printed nicer. Oh, this one's even in. I don't think the original's in dual shade, is it? Oh no, it is. It's in grayscale. So this is 20 years old now, the 10th anniversary edition. So I had this one for years and years, and Seth even says he's like he didn't even want to put this out. He's like, you know what, Palooka, because he didn't start. It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken, which became serialized in this until like issue 5 or 6. So the first 3 issues. What year is Palookaville #1? I think it's 1991, and that one's 2001. April 1991.
Yeah, there's no point in trying to make those comics collectible or keys. They're not keys.
Right. And anybody who's trying to sell Palookaville #1 for $200 is barking up the wrong tree. Palookaville fans just, and like I said, Seth even said, like he was like don't buy. He's like, the first 3 issues are terrible. He's like, well, he doesn't say terrible. He's like, there's nothing in. They're just because the first 3 issues are just little stories he did, and I like them. They're fine, but he didn't start like It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken didn't start till later on. So. Now I'll get issue 2 sometime and have the complete run, but once again, I'm not worried about it because there's nothing really in there. Like I was a little disappointed when this one first came out that it was the smaller size, but oh well, it's okay. Nice new cover.
Yeah, if you want to get Palookaville and you've never read it, even if you do start with #1. Yeah. You're not going to keep #1 because it's #1. You're going to go after the rest. Right. If you don't like it, you'll sell it. If you like it, you want the rest.
Yeah, and also it's like there's no, like 1, 2, and 3 stand on their own. I think it is. There's no continuing story. These are just stories he did and then moved on from. They were never reprinted in anything. I don't think there's never any reason to reprint them because. It's not like, It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken or Clyde Fans, which were graphic novels, or Wimbledon Green that he did. So, I'm glad to have it, and I'm glad to have it for $13, $14. But it's nothing I would, want in my collection for $200. Though I was also looking, I don't know why, like I said, every now and then, I have no slabs in my collection. And every now and then I'm like, I should get a slab in my collection just for the heck of it, just to have one. Hello there. That's for Terrence. And I'm always like, well, what comic would I get slabbed? And that's what I'm always. So for some reason this week I was like, you know what comic I would get slabbed? Hate #1.
Sure.
Sure, why not? But I was looking at. You can get, I have Hate #1. I don't want to send mine off because I don't want to do all that. I don't want to jump through all the hoops and pay the money to get mine slabbed. I don't care that much. And I was looking, for how much a Hate #1 goes for. So, yeah, I know you do, Comic Rack. You're Mr. Slab now. Selling that collection for
the
your
CGC crack effect.
Slab crack. That's how he's been. But I think there were only 2 slabs of Hate #1 on eBay. Because I guess no one cared. Like I said, you can get a decent copy of it for $30. And one guy in the US wanted $400 for it. And one guy in Canada wanted $200 for it. And I was like, I don't want to spend. I don't want it that badly for a conversation piece. But I think that's the comic I'd like slabbed if I were to have a slab, was Hate #1. Or maybe next week it'll be something different. We'll see. But yeah, I was surprised. I think Hate has dropped off. You know what's weird? I've been trying to get the Hate boxed set, and that's super expensive now. I don't think it's gone out of print, but they keep like on Amazon, it keeps saying new printing coming or something like that. And I was gonna buy it this summer, but had to buy a new computer when it was $80 this summer. And now that it's out of print, kind of, it goes for like $160 to $300 or $400. But the individual issues don't go for that much, which I have all of. So it's kind of like, You should hold the definitive slab reader and truly do it. Oof. Did you look on sold eBay listings? I can't imagine. I think I did, but I don't remember what the price was. Because I usually do look on sold listings when I'm looking. Like if you look on sold listings for Palookaville #1, no one's paying $200 for it. I think I did the same thing for, but it's a book that doesn't move very much, if I remember. It's just like, there's not a ton of copies of it on eBay. If you look on sold listings, there's not a ton of copies. And for a book where, like I said, the hardcover collection they came out with last year is in pretty high demand. The individual issues just aren't. I think because most of the people who read that are like trade paperback readers and collection readers. I mean, almost everybody I know who was reading Hate switched over to trade paperbacks at some point in the 90s. I didn't. I just kept buying the individual issue.
Well, if you've been doing that from the beginning, or from nearly the beginning, and you ended up buying the rest, it's easier to go with especially because they don't come out that often. So waiting for the trade is almost the same as waiting for the regular issues.
And for me, if once I put something on my pull list, I got a good comic shop. They'll keep getting it for me. Not everybody has that. They move around. They don't have a good comic. In New York City, there's like no pull lists and a lot of like the Manhattans. So if you go into Jim Handley's universe, you don't have a pull list. I mean, they have tons and tons of comics, but you have to go every week, and not everyone does that anymore. Once we start dying, the market will be flooded with hate. Yeah, I once heard, God, it must be 5 years ago now. I saw a little article written somewhere. I can't remember. I may have seen it in a couple places where people of a certain age were either dying or selling their collections. The age was around my age, like 80s people who bought them. And it's like their comics were, their collections were filled with all these indie books that no one wanted anymore, like Badger and Nexus and all that first comic stuff from the 80s that just no one collects anymore. And they're like, it's like my shop is flooded with these comics that I can't get rid of. I was like, oh, those are all the ones that are in my collection. Gotta eat later, Terrence.
So if I manage to take a trip to New York and go there, how about we make a deal? I'll get all of these in one sitting, ship them off to my country.
Yeah. I have like a complete run of John Sable freelance. And it's like I kind of have, I'm probably never going to read them again. Just because to me, John Sable freelance was a B-level comic, which I enjoyed. I bought every issue of, but it's not a comic I've ever had the desire to go back and reread. And over the years, I've been like, I should really get rid of these. But it's not like they were in demand. So they just, sat. I think those ones are in a box even. If it's not on one of my shelves, I'm really never going to read it. If it's in a box in a closet, it's not in the reading.
Might as well give them to a nephew who shares your strange tastes.
Yeah.
Especially because if you have a nephew right now, just liking comics will be a strange taste.
He's not interested in comics, my nephew. I gave him some when he was young. Oh well.
No. We need to adopt people into the. Yeah. You are my son in comics.
It's not my comic.
Yeah.
Like,
you get to inherit all this.
Because it's amazing to me that there's so much stuff that I got rid of that's now worth some money. And so much, like, especially the Marvel stuff I get. The sort of generic, mediocre Marvel comics from the 70s, like Spider-Woman, Ms. Marvel pops to mind, Nova. Some of that stuff is worth money. At least high condition ones are, maybe not the low condition ones. So it's like, but I was like, oh, I got rid of all that stuff because I never want to see it again.
The good thing about those comics for speculators is because they usually had their own rogues gallery.
Yeah.
So every once in a while there's a new villain. And first appearance of Condor or whatever, or Crime Buster.
That's how Sabretooth showed
yeah.
up in Iron Fist.
Right. But that's an anomaly. All the other ones you can, but I know that there are people out there. No, this is a key because it's the first appearance of Nova's enemy Condor. Yeah.
Where did the Sphinx
for that? $60. No.
Where did the Sphinx first appear? Was it
in Nova?
What was that?
It was in Nova. Yeah.
I remember him. I always liked him because I liked his costume.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember he showed up. I remember him showing up a few times as like the big bad in like C-level books.
Yeah, in New Warriors. The thing about the Nova was written by Marv Wolfman,
right?
And the comic got canceled because nobody cared. Right. So he ended the storyline in Fantastic Four. Even the last issue of Nova says to read the rest, go to Fantastic Four. But then the Sphinx had that major storyline with him fighting Galactus, and that kind of got important. So I think people see the Sphinx as a Fantastic Four villain, even though he's not.
Yeah, because he showed
just
up
because of that. Yeah, just because of that story. And only because Marv Wolfman was doing it.
No, it's not. Was the Sphinx in Attack of the Living Monolith?
No. Revenge of the Living Monolith was an Avengers graphic novel, which is kind of weird because the Living Monolith was an X-Men villain.
Yeah, I remember that one being. I remember this. I think the Sphinx and the Living Monolith were in something together because they both grew to giant size and fought each other.
May have been during the 90s in one of those.
No, it wasn't the 90s. It was the 70s or 80s.
No, can't be. The Sphinx seemingly dies in that Fantastic Four story, and that's the second time he appears.
I'm gonna have to look it up because I distinctly remember that, but I'm going by memory. Who knows?
I think it's the 90s. Might have been one of those crossovers between all of the when the new Warriors had a 3 or 4 monthly titles.
I didn't read any of that, so I don't think so.
No, but
I remember being disappointed by the Revenge of the Living Monolith story, though.
yeah, well,
I haven't. That's all. I don't remember anything about it. I just remember buying it and being a little disappointed in it, and I haven't read it since. It's on my shelf still.
well, the colors aren't bad. You weren't used to seeing colors.
The art doing. Who
yeah,
drew
the art's
that
pretty
one?
good.
Was it like
Yeah,
Brent Anderson or someone?
Mark Silvestri.
Mark Silvestri drew that one.
Yeah,
Wow,
can you believe
that must have been some early Mark Silvestri.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I didn't remember that at all. Like I said, I remember enjoying the artwork and the storytelling.
Or was that Emperor Doom that was Mark Silvestri? I think he did one of the Avengers graphic novels.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure it was Revenge of the Living Monolith.
I can't remember, so I'll have to go and look on my shelf later.
And yeah, the story itself wasn't bad. There's a lot of POV from the Living Monolith.
Yeah.
And you see that and you actually find out how crazy he actually is.
Was that Neil Adams stuff in the X-Men, the first Living Monolith appearance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. His actually first appearance as the living pharaoh was in the last issue before Neil Adams took over.
Okay.
He kidnaps Havok, then Neil Adams starts. Then he turns into the Living Monolith. Then it doesn't show up again until a Marvel team up.
Okay.
With John Byrne art.
Right, I got that one. I can't remember. Which one. I don't know if I mentioned it before. One of my favorite Marvel team ups in that run with John Byrne art, Bob Wiacek inking them, and Chris Claremont on words was Spider-Man and Man-Thing, the first Despair, which I think is. I think for some reason the first Despair has become a little bit of a hot book too, because I guess he might be in the Doctor Strange movie or something, or people are speculating he's in the Doctor Strange movie because I heard a couple of people mention it on YouTube this month. But just one of my favorite team up Spider-Man stories.
Well, the Despair has never been in a Doctor Strange villain. You'd think he'd be, but he was never. I think they fought a couple of times, but
maybe he's going to be in the next Spider-Man movie. That could be it. I can't remember which it was.
Sounds weird.
Yeah. Well, he was a Spider-Man villain, I guess, because he was in that Marvel team up.
Yeah, the thing he got used. He was used in the Man-Thing second series, I think, and he was in a couple of X-Men.
Okay.
With Brent Anderson art.
Right. Remember that now. Despair. D''spare or something. I always had that funny spelling to it. Are you thinking about Sphinx and the Living Computer? I don't know what I'm thinking of. I know it was the Sphinx and I thought it was they both grew to giant size and fought each other in the comic, and everybody was like, "Oh no, they're both."
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it came out
90s. It came out in the late 70s or early 80s, because I didn't really read much after the mid 80s, Marvel and DC. So it was probably the early 80s it came out. I wish I could remember what it was, but I just thought it was cool because they were both two giant-sized guys fighting each other. Could have been the Sphinx and anyone because the Sphinx could grow to giant size, the Living Monolith could both grow to giant size, if I remember right. That's why I thought it was those two.
Did they end up fighting Ego the Living Planet?
I don't think they can grow that big. And let's see, one of the 7 comics I got this week. One of the bad idea ones that I worked on, Pirate Queen, issue number 4 of 4. And the Chris Geruso back cover. And the Adam Polina art in this just impressed me again. And the coloring. Let me see who's on colors. The color art is Tamra Bonvillain, who also colors Once and Future that I get. Just the I just loved the artwork, and the colors in this were both terrific, especially in these, lush scenes of the home world, her home life, but kind of really a strange, what should I call, a poignant kind of ending, because this whole story was about the pirate queen who was pregnant at the beginning of the story. Like the whole story, she's been pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
and and once again, there is something that who was it? Ebert, I think it was. Roger Ebert pointed out way back when Fargo came out. He was like, Fargo is the only movie where there is a pregnant woman without a screaming birth scene, because she was pregnant at the beginning of the movie and she was still pregnant at the end of the movie. It's like, he's like, one thing you can count on in the movies and in all stories just about is if you see a pregnant woman, you're going to see a screaming birth scene. And sure enough, there was one in here. And it was funny because when I saw her at the beginning and she was probably, oh, we're going to get a screaming birth scene in this book. There's no way around it. But the whole story was about she was a pirate. Her husband was the captain. He was a fellow pirate. And in the first issue, this it took I think they were pirate. It took place just when like the European powers back in whatever year this is, 17, 18, whatever, used to use pirates like in their, like if England was fighting Spain, England would give licenses to pirates and they'd become privateers, and they could legally attack Spanish ship and take treasure. Well, this is in the period where the English just took away all the privateer license and we're now hunting down the pirates. So she and her husband were kind of being hunted down, and they're trying to go about their pirate life, and they were captured by this British sea captain. I don't know I can't even remember what his rank was, but he's got the whole British Navy behind him, so they don't have a great chance of getting away. They ended up killing her husband and she got away, and then the whole book was about her wanting revenge on this captain, and it was really well done, I have to. And then there was kind of a little bit of a change at the end, that kind of story wise was kind of cool, but real nicely done. And the Adam Polina art was just top. I mean, I didn't like his art this much in the 90s when he was one of the sort of generic X-Men guys. But it is really, really nice now. He can do some nice stuff. Have you read much of Adam Polina's stuff from the 90s?
A couple of X-Force. He was not my favorite artist.
Yeah, like I said, he was just one of the latter X guys doing that sort of X-Men style.
I don't think he was doing the X-Men style. That's why I didn't like him. His style was not like the...
It was sort of. It was X-Men adjacent. It was, I suppose. Because what happened was, I think he was kind of the mid to late 90s, like 96 to 99 or something, let's say. And what happened was Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld really set the style in the late 80s, early 90s. And then they all left for Image. And we had guys like the Kuberts, and who else was drawing? Was Silvestri drawing the X-Men then?
No, Silvestri went to Image with the other guys.
Okay, it was who else? Who am I thinking? I can't remember. But anyway, they were all fairly close to the X-Men style, and it kind of diverged. Over the years after that, it diverged, and there was still you still had to sort of draw this detailed style, but hatching became, or I should say, triple hatching, sort of became less and less prevalent, and he was in that period where there was still sort of an X-Men style, but it had drifted away from the early 90s.
I think his style would have meshed well with Vertigo Doom Patrol.
Yeah, now that I think of it, you think back, yeah. And he also did what was that book?
one of those Cable and Apocalypse stories in another time, right?
Yeah. I'm thinking of the one he did for Bad Idea.
Oh.
There were 2 books in one, and his was about these clones and it was done in a completely different. This is sort of a highly illustrative, sort of pirate fantasy style, I'd call it, but lots of realism in it. The other one had more of a cartoony quality to it. There was a little more comedy in it. Different, still drawn just as well, but the style was kind of different that he did. So it's interesting that he can, well, I think he's been in animation for 20 years in Japan. So
you're right. Well, yeah, if you already had a fluid style 20 years ago, you should be able to adapt to a cartoony style. No problem.
Do many things. I wonder how the Bad Idea guys got in touch with him, because I don't think he's done anything but stuff for them that I've noticed. Someone over there must know him.
You can ask.
Yeah, I'll have to ask. I said, how do you know Adam Polino? Because I don't think he did anything for Valiant.
Not that I know of.
And they're the Valiant guys, Dinesh and Warren. So, interesting question.
Now, the way you describe that story kind of reminds me of those 90s movies where an old Cold Warrior went rogue after and he had to be hunted down.
Yep. It was definitely a revenge tale. So, yeah. A revenge against the authority. Oh, and one thing that was really cool in this was sometimes they capture scale in comic books really well. And in this, they've been on their 3-masted schooner the whole time. Here's their 3-masted schooner. And here's the Spanish flagship, the Torquemada, coming up on them. And there's a nice shot over here. It just gives you a great, because those like military flagships were huge.
Well, so not that huge. But,
they were pretty big.
Not in the 17th century.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think this. It might be the 18th century. What is the year? Yeah, I don't know if it tells us a year on it, but
because they needed.
It must be. Hold on, I think they mentioned something about the American Revolution.
Okay.
But it was also just a little schooner they were on, a little 3-masted schooner. Wasn't even their pirate ship. But man, or I think it's a schooner. Like, I know what a schooner is. That's just a word I heard that I'm using now. I just realized. I have no idea what a schooner is. But good story. Liked it a lot. Pirate Queen.
Because a caravel wasn't much bigger than that. And it was not supposed to be the size of the warship.
How big was the Torquemada?
How big was that Torquemada looks like it was it's the size of a modern destroyer. They couldn't build something like that.
That doesn't help me. I have no idea what the size of a modern destroyer is.
Because until they had steam power, if you built a ship too big, it doesn't. It doesn't matter how many.
With the wind, right?
Yeah.
Either way, I loved the sense of scale. Did a good job. Even if he exaggerated it, he did a good job with it. I'm okay. I was okay with that. And then the first issue of Usagi Yojimbo, Lone Goat and Kid came out. This is the reprint. They've been reprinting them in 6-issue series. Once again, good stuff. All Usagi is good. But this actually is a done in one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing they're just sticking the done in one ones in with the whatever because he didn't do a lot of long stories. So I guess they're just breaking them up into 6 issues. But this was a good story. about a what was it? A samurai's widow and the lover he left behind, and all Usagi is good. It's like, as Scott says, it's the meeting of the Usagi Yojimbo Appreciation Society here every week. So here's another issue to appreciate with the Mouse Guard guy doing covers.
Mm-hmm.
Know what I actually saw this week? I don't know where I saw this. There was and I was somehow offended by it. I don't know why. A convention exclusive Usagi cover for, I think, one of the reprint series. I can't remember which one, but someone I can't even remember who the artist was, but they did a McFarlane Spider-Man #1 homage.
Oh, Jesus, another one.
Yes, and I was just like, you know what I'm going to call them now? Instead of homages, I'm going to call them piggybacks.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're doing. They're piggybacking on people's liking an image. Like, people like that Spider-Man #1 cover. And if you want to get them to like your stuff, you piggyback on that. You do your version of it. So that's what the people liking, a Spider-Man #1 homage depends on them liking Spider-Man #1. So it's like a piggyback cover. That's what I'm going to call them from now on. That's my new term I coined.
That thing is going to become the most ripped off cover of all time.
I actually think Spider-Man 300 is more ripped off because it's easier to draw. That's the only reason I think. Spider-Man 300 is the perfect cover to piggyback on because it's got some good design that's easy to copy. The design is just, the circle with the issue number in the background. So it's easy to copy that. And the one Spider-Man figure, which Todd McFarlane has all worked out for you. You can just draw your guy's costume on that. Spider-Man #1, you could kind of do the same thing on, but there's a lot more noodling in it. You have to put all those webs in, and put all those little spiders in, or come up with something stuff. So I think Spider-Man 300 is a little bit easier. That at least that's what I've noticed about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that if you do a Pietà cover, you at least have a bit more taste. But then I remember there's probably a bunch of comic artists who don't have any fine arts training and just doing the Dark Phoenix Saga cover.
Yeah, they don't even know it's La Pietà. They have no idea. I wonder when the first La Pietà was. Was it the Dark Phoenix cover? I can't remember.
I don't know. I'm sure there should be something earlier.
Yeah, there should be. And there are people who directly reference. Oh, Superman. Wasn't Superman carrying somebody in the 70s?
In the 70s. Superman's carrying Supergirl in Crisis.
And Batman in the 70s carrying someone? I can picture that.
I think there is, yeah.
Yeah. So it goes back to there at least.
Mm-hmm.
That just reminded me. The 70s just reminded me of. I was reading Mark Evanier's blog today. Do you read that one?
No.
You should read it every now and then. Just because he's got a lot of good comics history stuff in there.
I never remember to go read the blogs. There's a couple of comic book historian blogs that I try to find, but they have like one new post every 2 months.
Put it in. I still use an RSS feed that I check every day. That's what. In the morning, I read my morning web comics and check my RSS feed. I use something called Feedly, and you just cut and paste the blog addresses in there, and it shows up every day in your feed. 15 years ago, everybody was using them. Nowadays, social media took over, and nobody uses them. But he was talking about some writer for DC in the 60s and 70s that I had never heard of. And he just happened to go because he was a writer for TV and this and that. And I think he was a friend of, was it Mort Weisinger, who was the sci-fi agent? Yeah. Yes. Because this guy, I think, was a sci-fi writer. So Mort Weisinger used to hire him in the 60s to do DC stuff. But it was interesting reading about this guy. Who
No, it was Julie Schwartz, but it was Julie Schwartz. It was Julie Schwartz. Yeah.
Okay, Julie Schwartz was the sci-fi guy. Julie used to hire this guy in the all the way into the 70s. He wrote Superman and Batman stories, they said. I was like, really? I never heard of him. But he also used lots of pen names.
So not Hedman Hamilton.
No, I don't know. He gave his real name, but I don't remember what it is now.
Dominic Andrioni? No. No, not this one. This is about a restaurant or something.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, David Verne.
That's it. That's the guy, David Verne. You ever hear of him?
Nope.
Neither have I. I'm like, wow, it's amazing. There's still stuff I haven't heard of.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just an interesting little read about a part-time comic book writer that I had never heard of.
Nice.
But yeah, that's why I like Mark Avenir's blog. His comics history stuff is kind of cool. I'm gonna have to go back and read his Crossfire articles that he wrote in there, because I remember loving them a lot. His behind the scenes in Hollywood stuff. I can only conclude that Scott brings all the people into the chat. No doubt about it. And this is my cover I don't like of the week. Do you know what that is? Let's see, where is it? Nope, it's on this side. Ice Cream Man, issue number 28.
Why?
I'm guessing it was some. The story is about an etymologist, the history of a linguistic form. So I'm guessing it, not entomology, etymology. They were trying to do something clever with etymology, and they just made a cover. I'm okay with them trying, but this is a swing and a miss to me. This was the one. I guess this is the A cover, yeah, because this is cover A. Because this is the one that was in my pull. I guess they just pulled cover A for me, and I don't think they had any shelf copies. Because if they did, I would have picked another cover. The issue was good. The issue was about an etymologist who. What a weird. He makes such weird stories. This etymologist, in searching for, he's a guy who likes words and is searching for the origin of words. He's going to this. I don't even know where is. Does it tell us where it is? I don't know. Someplace, somewhere where there's a blind. Wherever this guy lives, and this guy lives, must be Asia. He's going up on this mountain, where on the top of the mountain lives this venerable old monk who speaks the oldest language on earth and knows the original words. This guy's obsessed with finding him. And of course, bad things happen to him the whole way up. Then, of course, he gets up there and bad things happen to him. As with every issue of Ice Cream Man, it's about bad things happening to people. It's a horror book. Well, like I said, Ice Cream Man is always an interesting read, and this one was kind of straightforward. Sometimes they do the experimental stuff in their book and not on the cover. But this time because I was like, because It gives me anxiety because it's coverless. I'm like, what, huh? Where's the cover? It's supposed to look like that. Like I never liked the sort of the there we go. I find that awesome. Give CGC some hard stuff to look at. Exactly. Just like the other books I don't like, it was when they design a cover to look old. So they put wrinkles and stuff in it. And I'm always like, I just never liked that design idea. But yeah, that would give Comixology something to look at. I still don't know how Comixology grades wavy books. I guess they don't even mention it. Oversaturated books that are all wavy. I guess it's not a problem for anybody but me. I'm the only one who cares. What else did I just see that they're coming out with? Oh, they're coming out with a new printing of the Grendel Omnibus Volume 1. Which has got all the earliest Hunter Rose stuff in it, I do believe.
Well, all of the Hunter Rose stuff. They decided to print that thing in chronological order.
Ah, okay.
So instead of publishing order, so you get all of Hunter Rose, the anthology miniseries that he did later.
Okay, so they're all in Volume 1?
Mm-hmm.
But he can't reprint like the Grendel Batman, right?
No. But then it does Volume 1 for Hunter Rose. Volume 2 is for the Christine Spar story and Branley's song, and Volume 3 is for the future stuff with Eddie and with Orion Asante and Warchild.
Okay.
With Prime. Then Volume 4 reprints the novels, which is not a very good proposition.
I didn't even. There were Grendel novels?
2 of them.
How did I not know that?
After Warchild, and using a couple of characters from the Grendel tales.
Were they printed in comic book form?
No, they were in hardcover only, I think. And there's a couple of illustrations, but you're used to reading. If you're used to reading something in a comic book and it moves to a novel, you don't feel like reading it.
No, why are you going to follow it?
Yeah.
My friend Rob would. He's the only one I know who would do that because he's a big novel reader and a big comic book reader.
No, but I can read a novel. I just don't want to read a novel about a property that started in comics.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. He would. I think he would. If it continued, he'd like it. He's the only one. He's one of my friends. I would guess who my friend Bunch also might. So 2 of my friends, I would think maybe would. The other 20 comic book reading people I know never would, including me. So I imagine it's a tough sell. Some weeks ago, I've been looking at a huge Taschen Spider-Man book. Oh yeah, I know that one. Taschen, by the way, is having a great discount right now. I did check that out. The Taschen, they have a few small book. I didn't know that they put them out. They have like a Captain America small book and a who is it? Fantastic Four small book. I haven't seen inside them yet, but they were only like $5. It's like whoa. But have you seen the big Taschen Marvel book that's like this big and that? It's like as big as that Kirby book I got. That's too big.
Yeah.
They're pretty cool, but they're too big and unwieldy.
Yeah. And they don't have enough text to read because there's a lot of pictures, a lot of images inside. So in that regard, it's made for as an introductory piece if you want to read about history, but.
Yeah. I don't know. I think my comic shop owner got that. He's the only one I know. Because once again, it's a book that's You're right. It's an introductory one, but it's like a hardcore book. So I don't know who's buying it. Like you have to be sort of a lover of books to get that book.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have to be sort of a lover of Marvel comics, but not a sort of historic. I don't know. I don't know who that book is for. I'm thinking about it now, and I
It's for
imagine
people.
you get it, you buy it, and never look at it.
It's for people who are curious about Marvel history, just like the DC books are for people who are curious about DC history.
But
The one
how
that
many
Paul
people
Levitt's
are there
did.
like that, really?
There might be a couple of them. I think that if they make it an easy reading, somebody who might have a cursory knowledge might want to expand a little bit. But if you're a hardcore historian, yeah, you're not going to learn anything from it.
What would you guess the print run on one of those books would be? 1,000, 10,000?
Yeah, probably 5. I think
5,000 guess?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I mean it's Taschen and they are available worldwide. Yeah, I've seen them here.
Yeah, I get
on bookstores, not on the comic stores. The comic stores don't
5,000
have.
worldwide. I think they could. You're right. That wouldn't be too big a number because that's an expensive book too.
Yeah.
How much did it go? It went for like $200 or something. It was expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So well, you got me. How many people bought that? And like I said, I can't imagine buying that. I mean, I saw it and it was cool, but I'm like, I can't imagine that book taking up that much room in my life. Forget the price. Forget what it offers inside. It takes up a lot of room. Maybe libraries get it. I don't know. I've seen one in my town. I say 10,000 at least. Okay.
Yeah, but you see one in the mega stores in Lisbon. The thing is, what I think that that Taschen does, they send your place a copy. If you sell it, they'll send you another.
Yeah.
Because if you already sold one, you're likely to sell another one.
Taschen is a great company. I picked up Jamie Hewlett, Escher, and H.R. Giger Taschen this week. Oh, on the sale, yeah. The only problem I have with Taschen is that sort of their lower priced books are made like crap. Like that, oh God, what's the name of that book my friend gave me? The one with Ditko's studio mate who did the erotic comics.
Oh yeah,
all of a sudden I can see the book. I can see his name on the cover. I can't remember his name. For a man who knows his place. That's the subtitle, and the title is his name. But whatever. That one is a cheaply made book. I mean, it did nothing but sit on my shelf, and the spine broke. And it's very light, which is okay that it's very light, but it just I've seen other Taschen books that are really well made. Taschen photography books can be really well made. Joe Stratton? No, it's not Joe Stratton. It's Eric Stratton. Eric Stratton, for the man who knows his place. That one's not a particularly well made book. Like I said, I may have a photography book or two by Taschen, and they were really well made. And I remember that Marvel book was well made too, from what I saw of it. Who knows? Maybe there just wasn't much call for Eric Stratton, so they put him on the cheap presses.
Yeah. Regular book publishers are interested in niche publishing right now. And I see a lot of that in the auto racing forums, because there's a lot of guys there who were very knowledgeable about the stuff, and they've told about their attempts at getting a book into press. And it's sort of a book on all of the ERAs that raced in Brooklands. Right. Then they end up having to see if they can sell the book at a $70 price. With 200 pages, hardly any pictures because they're expensive, and a 1,000 print run maybe. but it took them like 10 years to get all details just right. And so yeah, they spent a lot more than $70 for 1,000 issues.
Wow. Yeah, my Giger book has a box cut mark on it, and the spine got a chunk ripped out of it on the walk home. Boy, the box cut and smashed up spine fits the subject matter, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not overly precious with my books generally. I mean, but if I'm going to buy a big, new, expensive book, I want a big, new, expensive book. You know, if I'm going to,
Sure.
That's like, which one was it? My comic shop gave me once a, I think it was a Frazetta Johnny Hazard box set, because like the corners were, they shipped it to him and the corners were smashed on it. And so they had to get a return on it, but they didn't want to return. They're like they wanted to destroy the book. They're like, here, you want this book? Just keep it quiet. I was like, all right. But it was like, but you know, when you're a bookstore and you get a $75 book in with the corners smashed, you just made it hard to sell. So it's kind of like, you know, you got to make those. You got to keep the. Like I said, I'm not precious about my books, but I know a lot of people are. And like I said, if I were spending $75 on a book, I'd want it to be in good shape. So I can understand that.
Sure, man. Somebody's going to smash the corner. It's going to be me.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody gonna rip up the dust cover. I'm gonna rip up the dust cover. But you know,
like the
some
dust
book
covers.
collectors are real persnickety about their books, just like comic collectors. No difference. Except
of course,
mostly dust jackets.
Yeah. Of course, you're going to buy a book secondhand. You should expect some imperfections.
Yeah. Have you ever seen them? What was the name of that Johnny Depp movie where it's a horror movie where he's a book dealer? I cannot remember the name of it all of a sudden. It's by that director who fled the U.S. for France because he had a statutory rape charge.
Oh, Roman Polanski.
Roman Polanski. He directed it. Johnny Depp stars in it. I cannot remember the name of it, but I like that movie because I like Johnny Depp roaming around New York and Europe looking for rare books. He's looking for the devil too, but it's like I can watch a whole movie of Johnny Depp being a sleazy book dealer looking for rare books in Europe. I'm like, that's fun to me. I didn't even need the horror. The horror movie parts were fine too, but I liked the looking for books part. He was comparing illustrations, finding out which one is which. Paulo, did your newsstand distribution go away the same way it did in North America?
Not the same way, but it did go away. There are 0 comics being published for newsstand distribution in Portugal right now. We do get some imports from Brazil, but the only publishers that we have are a regular book publisher and all the specialized smaller publishers who rely on festival sales to get by.
And surprise, surprise, guess what came back this week? Saga number 55. I think it's been 3 years since there was a Saga. Somebody said in the back. Okay,
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Corvidel, are you there?
He already complained about it a little bit on my weekly haul. But 44 pages, $3. That's what made me happy. And it's Saga. Fiona Staples is the real draw for me. I like her artwork; it's pretty nice. But like, as we were saying before, To me, Saga is a B level, is a B. Not an A, but I'm okay with it being a B. I miss Saga. Well, it'll be coming back across the pond in a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if they're getting it out in 55-page or 44-page chunks, which I can't imagine is anything but this issue. But
I have a feeling that we're going to start having our U.S. comics much later than usual because of fuel prices. So if we're going to if we stop getting them through airmail and start getting them
slow boat,
slow boat, yeah, it's going to take another couple of weeks.
I don't have a problem with it. And so are the boobs. But good issue. I enjoy it. Like to me, I'm not one of those people who thinks Saga is an A level book. To me, it's a B level book, and it's just fine with me being a B level book. I completely forgot what was going on in the story. I think one of the characters died. I'm not 100% sure. I think so. They acted like he was dead, but I don't remember. It's been 3 years since I read anything from Saga. And I've never gone back and read any of the issues. So. But glad it's back. Another $3 comic. Hey, now Spawn isn't the last of the $3 comics. But I like this one. So it's better than Spawn. Yeah, Marco died. Prince Robot died too. Oh, okay.
I have no idea who those people are. I read 3 pages of Saga and decided no.
I enjoy it. Like I said, to me, the fun of Saga is in the name Saga. It's a big, long, sprawling, nearly structureless story, and I wish it was more structureless because it's got too much structure for me. I want it to be less structured, but that's what I expect. I'm like, and I've heard people like complain about it, going, "Oh, no, I don't like this, I don't like that. When's the story going to come?" I'm like, the name gives it away. It's a saga. They're not doing this in easy to digest 6-issue chunks. They're just rambling on, and that's what they've done. It's like the story just kind of ebbs and flows and rambles on, which I like because no stories do that, and especially anymore. So I really enjoy. But a lot of people complain about that, or at least early on. I think all those people are gone. But holy cow! What did it say here? No wonder they've been gone for 3 years. It says, That said, the monthly series may have picked up a few new family members since our friends at Image Comics, congrats on your 30th anniversary, greatest publisher ever, continued to print our collections at a breakneck pace, with a mind-boggling 7 million editions of Saga now have been sold around the globe in 20 different languages. Holy cow. 7 million editions.
Yeah, Saga is a big one abroad. It's apart from Marvel and DC, it's Saga and The Walking Dead.
Wow, that's a freaking lot. I hope they got rich off it.
The thing is, I have my suspicions that U.S. comics are going to start losing prestige in Europe in the coming years.
Yeah,
because things still need to get known here by piggybacking on the popularity of Marvel and DC. But the licensing fee for Marvel is 4 times more expensive this year, last year.
Wow!
And while Panini published the comics themselves in the larger markets, in smaller markets, they license them out or they don't publish at all. And here in Portugal, one of the publisher was trying to select what they wanted to do, but it's practically impossible. They try to do books because you can't do a magazine anymore. But if this happens a lot, because Panini also have to pay Marvel, they're not going to pay to publish the things that sell less. There's going to be fewer Marvel magazines on the stands. With fewer Marvel magazines, there are fewer DC magazines.
Right.
There are fewer American series getting known because publishers won't try those without Marvel there being the entry point to US comics. And while there will be some knowledgeable publishers who will try to get some things going, I see the possibility that US comics start becoming a niche product over here.
As Marvel goes, so goes the rest of the US comics industry, and Marvel's getting too expensive. Saga is an avocado toast. A little too fancy for some people.
Yeah, avocado toast does not exist. There's either avocados or toast.
You missed us talking about Saga, and Ice Cream Man, and Usagi Yojimbo, and Pirate Queen. I don't know any left.
And Taschen books.
And Taschen books, yes. And the quality of the binding on Taschen books. Their more expensive books have much better binding. Just to recap for you. Trying to think what Taschen books I have. I don't know. Can't remember.
Actually, don't have any because they're expensive and big.
Yeah, like that. I know that one that I got from my friend Bunch. The what was named Eric Stratton book is Taschen. Yeah. But I know I've got a few expensive photo books, but what I mean by expensive is $40, $50, $60, and I'm not sure if any of them are Taschen. One or two maybe.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I flipped through them.
Yeah.
So I know what's inside.
Right.
And I decided this is not good value for money.
Oh, have you ever heard of that Helmut Newton book they made?
Helmut Newton?
Helmut Newton is a photographer.
Right.
Famous fashion photographer, does a lot of nudes. They put out a book. It must be 20 years ago. I think they're coming out with a newer, smaller version. It was, 3 feet tall by 2 feet wide, 1,000 pages or something, all like full photography. And I think it was like a $10,000 book.
So it's cheaper to actually hire the models.
Yeah. Now these are all high fashion models, so probably not. But yeah, I think I think that was like 20 years ago. Then 10 years ago, they put out $100 or $200 smaller version of it. Now I think they're reissuing that smaller version. But yeah, that's the most expensive Taschen book I've heard of. Nice photographs though. Helmut Newton. It's a good photographer. He's got a very sort of distinct naked lady style, high fashion style.
There's a Helmut Newton Foundation.
Yeah, I think he's passed on, but he was a big name. I reread Charles Burns' Black Hole this week. Such a great book, Jared. Seems like something you would have picked up in the floppy when it was new. It does, doesn't it? I really should have. I wonder how I missed it. Because I didn't read Black Hole till 10 years ago, I think it was. Matter of fact, I just wrote a review of it. I just reread it. I think it was this year. Because that was one of those books I was always like, I don't know how I missed it. I used to occasionally see an issue of it like in the 90s, but I never bought an issue. I never put it on my pull list. But I should have. I don't know why I missed out on that one. Then when I first read it I think around 10 years ago, 2010, I think, when it came out, and I have the hardcover right over there on my shelf, I was disappointed with it. But it was one of those times where I was disappointed with it, but I thought it could be me. And I was always like, and I was meant to reread it kind of when I was in a better state of mind or mood or whatever. 10 years went by, and I finally reread it this year, and I liked it. I'm like, it really was my mood in 2010. I enjoyed it a lot more now than I did 10 years ago. Which happens sometimes, I notice, as I get older. Have you read Black Hole, Paolo?
No, not sure. Yeah, Charles Burton's never really attracted me. I don't have a man on for him like I do for the guy who did Acme Novelty Library for Chris Ware. Yeah, but it's not something that attracts me. Ever attracted me much.
I must say the what are they? X'd Out. X'd Out was actually, I really like. There's 3 volumes of his stuff that came out in like the teens, the 20 teens, I think it was. The first one is named X'd Out, X apostrophe ED out, X'd Out. And there's 2 more that came after it. Those were terrific, weird sci-fi things. I really enjoyed those. I can see Netflix doing that as a series, and they'd ruin it the same way they're ruining Lock and Key for me. Too much teen angst, because Black Hole is all about teen angst, but they'll play up the teen angst even more. I got the Old Geezers Volume 2 the other day, halfway through it, and I'm loving it. Maybe more than I don't know the Old Geezers. Paolo, have you ever had any books that you read and then read years later and liked better?
Not sure. When I usually buy something, I already have a feeling I'm going to like it. It's very rare that I don't end up liking something at first try.
Me too, but it happens. It can also be it's not that I didn't like it. It's like it's just that it was like didn't made a big like Asterius Polyp,
which I still have to read.
Made a bigger impression on me this time when I read it than the first time 10 years ago. So that was another one. But you're right. Most stuff I do like off the bat, which is why when there's something like Black Hole, which I should like, but just due to the nature of it's like I like things like Black Hole. I like other Fantagraphics comics. I like
Sure. What I have, let's just say that there's something that I only end up buying maybe 20 years later, but when I'm finally ready to read it.
Ah, okay. Yeah. But like Black Hole, like when I read something I think I should like and I don't like it, that's when I sometimes get suspicious of myself. When I'm like, is it my mood? Because sometimes it is. Sometimes I'm in a bad mood when I read something and it doesn't hit me right. And I think that was the case for Black Hole. Or like the case with Asterius Polyp. When I first read it, I was younger than the main character. When I just read it, I was older than the main character. And I think that made a difference in how I saw him. And it could just be that when I first read The Black Hole, I found teenagers to be annoying. When I read it now, I didn't find them to be... Teenagers don't annoy me so much. That could just be it. Who knows?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I really... Because there's one thing that I remember liking when I knew I was not supposed to, which is a Spanish artist called Miguel Ancho Prado. And his art style is... It definitely would have been classified as alternative in the US. And his stories are kind of like Kafka, but funny. So yeah, I mean, I read them as a teenager, and I thought, oh, this is interesting.
Though another one that I should like more, and everyone else seems to like, is that Cursed Pirate Girl that came out last week. Everyone else seems to like it more than I was kind of with it mainly.
Well, maybe Airtight Garage falls into falls into that. Maybe the first time I tried reading Airtight Garage, I get to page 8 and I gave up.
Then you liked it better than when you started it over?
Mm-hmm.
But that just reminded me of one that I was disappointed by, and that's the Inkle.
Well, the Incal is much better than anything Mobius wrote. Because the Incal is not a Mobius comic; it's just a comic drawn by Mobius.
I just didn't find it very interesting.
Yeah,
I remember when I first got it. I mean, I enjoyed the Mobius artwork, of course, but the story just didn't really grab me. And then a few years ago, I decided to read it again to see if I was, because I read it when I was much young, when I was in my 20s. So I'm like, I'll read it again.
The second album is actually better than the first one. Maybe it's because you get used to the way Jodorowsky writes dialogue.
I have no explanation for it. That was just one that I'm like, everybody seems to like this one. It leaves me cold. I don't know why.
And the Meta Barons is definitely better than the Incal, even though the Incal is the thing that people love because it's got the Mobius artwork. The Meta Barons is a much better written story. It's kind of a continuing soap opera with different characters in the same family, so it's different than the Incal is supposed to be a wacky adventure. Which I think ended up being done better as The Fifth Element by not Jodorowsky.
Titkovlin, I liked Dark Knight 2 better when I reread it than when it came out. Same with Miller's Ronin. I thought Miller's DK2 art was crazy when it came out. Now I love that craziness. Okay. You know what the thing that bothered me most about DK2 when it came out was the Lynn Varney coloring. In that I and other people could tell that it looked like someone learning to use Photoshop. Because that's what happened to people when they're first learning to use Photoshop. You have all these effects at your fingertips, so you want to use them all. And that's what it kind of looked like. You know, it's just kind of like, I mean, I don't know what it would look like to me now, but at the time, that's what it looked like to me. And it just kind of put me, and I wasn't the only one it put off like that. You know, I knew a lot of people working in Photoshop, and she had just learned it for that book. So it was kind of like, I'm not a fan of the color on it, but I wasn't a huge fan of it overall, but yeah, the digital coloring was odd. Yeah, it was her learning Photoshop.
One thing that I noticed in the way that I read some things, like trying to read everything that Grant Morrison did, which is what some people try to do, and I only read Doom Patrol many years after I've read The Invisibles. And I could tell, yes, this is Grant Morrison's pretentious comic. Because there's a lot of dialogue in there that you can tell, he's name dropping. Showing how smart he is. There's a bit of that in The Invisibles, but all the craziness that he gets together to do The Invisibles translates into a readable story. You might not get all of it. You don't get all of the references, but you can read it for the story, and it's there. And Doom Patrol has moments when Morrison is there. Yes, you know this. You just read about this. Thank you.
Anybody who references the art movement Dada is trying to impress somebody.
It could have just gone with the Brotherhood of Dada and trying to explain what they were trying to do in the story, but it starts going all when Negative Man starts to go. This reminds me of the movement, whatever, blah blah blah, by art Czech artist, blah blah. Shut up.
I read those Doom Patrols. My friend Rob lent them to me years ago. Right when they were coming out, because he's like, "Oh, you got to check these out," and they were okay. the thing I remember being amused about the most in them was that that villain who had every superpower until you thought of it. That just was amusing. The story flying, and the guy would crash to the ground. Super strength, and he'd lose his super strength. I found that amusing in the storytelling. But yeah, there was all sorts of weird Photoshop effects, and the Dada rules. No way, Dada rules. Actually, I like Dada more than I like people referencing Dada. Because they'll never be as cool as the Dadaists.
The Dadaists were bored rich people who were fed up with themselves and decided that the universe must make as little sense as their lives.
Well, and it also came out of World War I. That was a big part. That was a big part of Dadaism. The main credo of Dadaism was that if Western civilization can make, if the pinnacle of Western civilization, during the pinnacle of Western civilization, World War I happens, then it must be corrupt to its core, and we have to, and that's what they were attempting to do, is like sort of destroy Western civilization through its art, and in ways they did, but that's a whole other art lecture. But to me, Dada is like punk rock. I'm okay with Dada. I'm okay with punk rock. But people 50 years later using Dada and punk rock to make corporate entertainment, to me, is just like, oh, come on.
Totally missing the point.
Yeah, it just bothers me. Yeah, Flex Mentallo is another ridiculous recoloring. Backgrounds are so dark that info in there is lost. Yeah. I just love the sound of poetry. Dadaist poetry. Fed up with art. Absurdist reality. A fur-bearing fish.
Vogon poetry.
Vogon poetry.
Yes, that is Dadaist.
Yep.
Although I think that the Vogons are aware of the absurdity of it. That's why they know that they have pleasure in torturing you by listening to it. They know that it's not good, and it will never be good.
Flex Mentallo recoloring just reminded me. I mentioned this last week, Paolo, but you weren't here. Arrowsmith, a new do you know the series Arrowsmith?
Oh yeah, I have the original
one. New volume, first issue just came out last week. And he mentioned in it, which I find kind of cool, they're coming out with a new hardcover of the original 6 issues from, 15 years ago, whenever it came out. But he also said that there was some nudity in the original one that DC/Wildstorm made them put dark color over. So they're removing the dark color in the new printing so you can see the nudity as you were supposed to back then. So I said, oh, that sounds cool.
Sure.
So I might get the hardcover volume of Series 1, which I have the original stuff on my shelf, but I want to see it as it was originally meant to be seen. Naked
might be the sex scene between Fletcher and his nurse girlfriend.
Probably. I mean, I don't remember any of it except that he had a nurse girlfriend who's not in the first issue of this one. He mentions she's off, I don't know, in space fighting with the JLA or something. That was always the Marvel and DC's excuse when someone wasn't around. They were off in space.
Yeah.
Oh, the Fantastic Four could help us, but they're off in space.
even though they hadn't had a space adventure in a year, and they were not going to have another.
I've been swimming through the dollar bins, picking up 80s, 90s crazy mixed media art comics like Vertigo titles and Sienkiewicz type stuff. Does anyone know of any new comics that have mixed media or painted? Everything's digital. Let me see. Sort of mixed media. I don't know. Nothing popped. If I think of something, I'll let you know. So much stuff that might look like mixed media is digital these days. No, I can't think of anything. That reminds me, I still have to reread Cages.
Do all those Jonathan Hickman diagrams count?
Please keep those away from me. No Jonathan Hickman wasted pages. I don't mind the wasted pages like in a really thick comic, but if you're going to give me a slim volume, don't waste my time with diagrams. Let's see. The closest I could find was Batman Reptilian title. I've heard of people praising that one. Gideon Falls was crazy enough. There's another one to check out, Gideon Falls. But yeah, you don't find much mixed media stuff these days since computers can make things look mixed media. People avoid it. I don't think mixed media was ever popular. That's why they're all in the dollar bin for Tit Goblin to find 30 years later. But yeah, I keep meaning to reread Dave McKean's Cages. Speaking of mixed media, but I haven't. Just hasn't made it to the top of the list.
Dave McKean is hard for me to get into.
Yeah. It's a shame everyone gave up the craft. If by everyone you mean 6 people. Yes. Who were the mixed media people? You said Sienkiewicz, Dave McKean, maybe Ted McKeever, but he was mostly black and white. But he used to pile on the paint.
David Mack.
What was that?
David Mack.
David Mack. Yeah, there's another one. We're up to 4. Can we make it to 6? Jack Kirby.
Jim
Steranko. There, we're up to 6. We had to go back to the 60s for a couple of them, but what was Jim Steranko telling the story of this week? Oh, that was interesting. Jim, have you ever checked out Jim Steranko's Twitter?
Not anymore.
I haven't checked it out in a while. I happened to check it out the last couple of weeks. Sam Keith. There's another one. He was telling the story of him meeting Jack Kirby and hanging out with Jack Kirby and the creation of Mr. Miracle. And he was happy to be an influence in the creation of Mr. Miracle. And Jack Kirby, he went through the specific things that Jack Kirby sort of adapted from Steranko's that stuff. Like Steranko, he said in the 60s, before he was in Steranko, he was in comics, Steranko was an escape artist. And he did that for a few years until he got bored with it. Whatever. And after he got bored with it and was done with it, he wrote a book showing all his tricks and what he did. And he was showing how, and he told Kirby all about this when they were talking and hanging out together. And I think it was then Jack went on to create Mr. Miracle, and I think it was Carmen Infantino told Steranko it was based on him. You should check it out. And he went through like some specific things that were in his book that Jack Kirby adapted for Mr. Miracle. And it was kind of interesting. It was an interesting read to see just like little devices, like how, like in his book, he said he had specific devices for specific things that he would use. But he said, but then he noticed it was hindering Jack Kirby's storytelling. So then Jack invented an all-in-one device, the mother box. And he's like, and then that started hindering Jack Kirby's storytelling. So he made the mother box in Mr. Miracle's hood. So he started with these sort of specific devices that Steranko would use in his escape game. But then, like I said, then he had to come. Kirby as a storyteller had to kept coming up with all these specific devices, and that was just sort of cramping his storytelling style. So he moved away from it. So he had like a few different examples like that were really cool. A Portuguese guy named AJ Goncalves.
Gonçalves.
Gonçalves. Okay.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
AJ Gonçalves. What's that accent called? The little one under the C.
It's a cedilla. It turns the C's into S's when they usually have a K sound.
Because isn't
also
there
found
one
in
of those in French too?
Yeah, it's that one. It's in French and in Catalan.
Ah, okay. So I remember there was the accent aigu and the accent circumflex. Those are the two I can remember from my French days. I think they were the up and down ones, but
To the left it's the grave. To the right it's the acute, and the triangular head is the circumflex.
Ah, the triangular hat is the circumflex. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. A arte suprema. Is that the
from the other game?
Gonçalves? Okay. I don't know that one. Oh, I also got it. I don't have them out now. I showed them off on my pull list. I think I put them away. Unless they're over there. Still. Are they? Oh, there we go. I bought from the website. I went back and got Great Gatsby #1, the gold foil edition, and Great Gatsby #1, the sketch cover edition.
Yeah.
And a second copy of the Great Gatsby #1, because buying them all three was cheap rather than buying them individually.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, one night I was like, you know what? I want to see if I can get that gold Gatsby gold foil, because I bought the gold foil ones for issue 2 and 3. I usually don't buy multiple covers, but since I've been so hooked on the Great Gatsby lately, I decided. And you can go right to Clover Press's website and order them. I was like, okay, I will. And I'm thinking about an artist to get to do a sketch on the Great Gatsby one, but I don't know who and I don't know when.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be fun to get a sketch from some artist on the Great Gatsby cover.
They're trying to get one of the Portuguese publishers, Seita, to publish that.
Yeah.
But the guy in charge said no. But it's just that the guy who's number 3 in the company is the art dealer for Jorge Coelho. So it's in his interest to get the book published.
Why not? Why not? I should be Knight of the Great Gatsby order collar.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a Gatsby sketchbook now for the Gatsby illustrations I'm going to be doing on my Great Gatsby Illustrated digital edition that I want to do, but that's just something to do over the next year or so. We'll see if it moves on to anything. But here's an art lesson for you. Sometimes you got to get the boring thumbnails out of your system before you can do the more interesting ones. I was just thinking about doing Gatsby and Daisy. These are just little thumbnail sketches. I was thinking about Gatsby and Daisy in a car, and as you can see here, this one. Whoops! The first thing I had to do was draw this boring one before I could come up with some kind of interesting angle. So sometimes you just got to get the boring one out of the way because it's in your head. So if you're doing art, don't be afraid to do the boring ones because you need to get them out. Get them out of your system. So that's what I was doing before I came on here. I was sitting here drawing some Great Gatsby thumbnails. Though I have no idea what anyone looks like yet. Or at least my versions of them. Or what style I'm going to work in. Or anything. The very beginning stages. Send your blank cover to me. I'll get you a Coelho drawing in it. So, okay.
Yeah.
What you're gonna have to send me DM me your address. I'll send it over to you. We'll see what we can get. Send you some other random comics too. Because I got tons of them. Let's see, what else did I get this week? Still got a few comics here. We've got Monstrous. What number are we? This is 36. That's a big number these days. Cover's a little dark. It's lit up pretty well on screen, though, I gotta say. I think it looks lighter on screen than to my eyes. Have you read any of Monstrous?
No, we have it here. I don't know. There was a time when I was interested in picking it up, then there wasn't.
I've been enjoying it. I'd say to me this was a B+ to A- book, around there. Mm-hmm. You kind of have to like fantasy stories with politics in them, because there's lots of this reads more like, I don't want to say it reads like a novel, but I think it's more like a novel than it's paced more like a novel than a comic book to me, which is fine, because like there's this whole big long story. Yeah, like any fantasy novel where there's some big long war story going on, and they go back and forth between the parties and the politics going on and within the parties, and this guy's trying to get this guy to be his ally, and then there's stuff like that going on amidst all the fantasy stuff. So I'm glad it's back. And like I bought 36 issues of it. so I like it. It's good stuff, Monstrous. Yeah, it's worth checking out. I mean, the first trade is probably the cheap one, so or digitally. It probably looks good digitally because it prints fairly dark, but not overly dark. Well, I must say, sometimes I generally like the art, but sometimes there's an unfinished quality to it at times that puts me off because it's not inked. It's colored directly over top of pencils, I think. And it's not really that much. I'm looking at it now and going, it's okay. It doesn't bother me. Like, have you ever seen stuff? It doesn't happen as much anymore. It used to happen more in the early days of shooting right from pencils, where the penciler kind of didn't finish things because it was always the inker's job to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess now it's the colorist's job in times. And so I think she's doing her own coloring. A lot of it is finished in the color. Where are the credits? Yeah, Sana Takeda is doing her own coloring. So it's finished with the color rather than finished with the inks. And sometimes that leaves me a little cold.
Yeah.
That reminds me of I was talking about the color on Aerosmith last week too. What was interesting about it was it looked like an old-fashioned comic in that it really was inked, and the inker did his job and inked it. And so the colorist didn't have to add a lot of light and shade. So instead added a lot of texture and shade. So it was really interesting to see. It was probably one of the first comics I've seen done like that in a while. But there's so much texture to the color, and it's not overwhelming. It's just there, but that's where the colorist added interest to it. And I thought that was a really good job. Paulo, my grandparents would always trade salted cod for embroidered tablecloths when Portuguese fishermen stepped in the harbor. Trade 6 codfish for the gray blanket to keep up tradition.
Oh no, I need this. You have no idea how cold my house is.
I actually, there's a really good book on cod. a history book called Cod, The History of the Fish That Changed the World. I read it years and years ago, and I want to reread it. As a matter of fact, it's really interesting because without cod, the European age of exploration wouldn't have happened.
No.
Because cod was the perfect fish for drying and salting and keeping on long voyages.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, the Catholic Church drove a lot of it too with their meatless Fridays. So there was a lot of cod eaten in Europe. And the cod fisheries in Europe, each country had their own area they could fish for cod.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the exploration was going out and finding more cod fishing areas.
That's how we found Newfoundland.
That's the story in this book, that the first, I forget who the first people who went up to Newfoundland, the first Europeans who sailed up to Newfoundland reported seeing Basque fishing boats there. And for years, the Basques, who are in northern Spain, right? The Basque region, and France, they overlap with.
Mm-hmm.
The Basques didn't have a designated cod area because I guess they weren't cut in when the other European powers divided up the cod fisheries. Yet they still were bringing in cod, and there's some people who think they were bringing in cod from Newfoundland because that was one of the greatest cod fishing areas in a while. But the book ended on a sad note in that we've overfished cod.
Well,
they're not around in the great numbers they were anymore.
No.
And they thought that, and this book is 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
They thought that if they put a moratorium on a lot of cod fishing to try to get the numbers back up, but at that time the numbers weren't coming back up, and there was no guarantee they will, because some other fish could fill the niche, sort of evolutionary niche that cod filled. So there was no. I haven't checked on the cod in a good long time, so I don't know. But that's a great book. Check it out. If you want to read an interesting history book, Cod, History of the Fish That Changed the World. Only Japan and Chile consumes more fish than Portugal per inhabitant. Wow.
Yep.
We've overfished everything. Yeah, there is that.
Yeah, if you look for culinary tips on codfish, you have to look for them in Portuguese, because we say we have 1,001 ways to cook cod.
I'm not a seafood fan, so I won't eat any cod myself.
Well, cod was the best way to get fish inland.
Yeah,
because of the way we salted it.
Right.
That's why every region in Portugal, even in the countryside, has its own cod dish.
That and there was so much population in Europe, they fished out all the streams. The cod moratorium here happened the same time the comics bubble burst. Depressing 90s for Newfoundland, man. No cod and no comics. Wow. Wow. Yeah, I think this book was written somewhere around the year 2000. I can't remember, but I think I read it in the early 2000s. Let's see, what else did I get? Once and Future, another big number, 24. 24. It has amazed me that this book is up at number 24 because it was originally supposed to be a 6-issue miniseries. And then they're like, we're going to keep on going. And this is the one where sort of the realm of the fairies and stories and has taken over all of England now. They were trying, and the first 10 or 12 issues, they were trying to keep that from happening. There was these people who, if kind of like if too many people found out about the fairies and the stories and believed them, they'd be able to cross over into our world, kind of thing. And now for the last, I don't know, 4 issues or whatever it is, all of England is taken over by these fairy stories. And since there's multiple versions of King Arthur, 2 King Arthurs showed up to fight each other. And in this one, like I said, we found out that what I didn't know. You know the Shakespeare play King Lear?
Mm-hmm.
King Lear was originally a sea god who eventually through the years got downgraded to king, legendary king. And so the King Lear sea god almost made his way back in this, but he didn't, because not enough people believed he was a god. So he was just this thing in the ocean for a little while. And then the like Lancelots were one Lancelot is a centaur. He's half horse for some reason because he got transformed earlier on. And the other Lancelot is calling him an unholy beast and trying to kill him. And then they managed to the one Arthur and his Lancelot was fighting the other Arthur until the other Arthur's Merlin told the other King Arthur that Lancelot was just sleeping with his wife. So then it was just like, there's all these crazy mixed up King Arthur stories. And then to give away the ending, in the middle of all this fighting, oh, hold on. First, we have a third King Arthur shows up out of nowhere. And we're like, a third King Arthur? Which one is this? So then their new plan is to go and to find somebody from the stories who can fight kings. And of course, you know who's coming.
Robin Hood.
But as she says to him, he's a monster too. All of them are monsters. We just hope he's going to fight our other monster. So it's like so Robin Hood's no hero. None of these guys are heroes when they come out of the stories. They're all monsters. So they found Robin Hood to hopefully go fight King Arthur. While in Lisbon, my street was unofficially known as Cod Street due to the many cod shops there. Oops, hey. How did she sneak in? Dun, dun, dun. But yeah, Once and Future has been fun. The last few issues have just been like running and fighting, and the art is terrific. And matter of fact, Tamara Bonvillain is coloring this one too. She colored that Pirate Queen. She's got bright colors in this one, and she's a really good colorist. And the art is terrific. This is Dan Mora is drawing it. And she really, like with this, when it's turned into a fantasy world, she's really turned up the brightness on the colors. I mean, there you go. There's some crazy bright colors. Has Once and Future made it over to Portugal at all?
No. And it's one of those comics that's going to have a hard time reaching the place if the US comics start disappearing because of Marvel.
Do you get any Boom Studios comics over there?
Yeah, if maybe not for the newsstand anymore, but
the trades, the collected editions, like
for the comic shop, I probably in order to get most Boom Studio stuff, I probably need to put it on a pull list.
Okay, like Something is Killing the Children trades don't just show up in the bookstore or something like that.
Something is Killing the Children might be. I need to go.
I think that's their most popular one, so I think that have the best chance of showing up, unless it's some of their licensed stuff. I don't know.
Well, the licensed stuff has the fans, although that's more from IDW.
Okay.
The Boom Studio stuff is that Boom Studios is that publisher who is not who is famous enough for people to want to order it, but not famous enough for the shop to have it on display.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I heard who was it? IDW just lost the Transformers and GI Joe license.
Yeah. Those guys have been. I'm not surprised. IDW has been in the red for like 6 or 7 years in a row,
Yeah,
and they're not losing a little money. It's like $7 million a year
wow.
in the red.
How do they get those artist editions out? Those are big, expensive books. I guess they're paying for themselves. Who knows?
I think Dean Millennium can take the the artist editions to different publisher if
Yeah,
IDW goes under.
yeah. Interesting.
I think
Yeah, I've
Dark
never
Horse
read
should.
any GI Joe or Transformers, so
You know, I've heard that the current crop of Transformers is actually good, but I got so fed up of Transformer comics when I decided I was going to buy the the stuff from the early Zero Zeros, and the thing ended up not being that good, and I bought a lot of it. I don't know why, and so I got fed up with Transformers comics. So I'm not
you
going
know
to
what
buy
I
more.
that just reminded me. I don't know why I just thought of this. Probably because licensed comics. There's a company in the early 2000s, mid aughts that were doing Micronauts books. What was it? It was
Yeah,
that place out of Chicago. Who was that?
I think it was Devil's Due. It was probably
Devil's
the first thing
Due.
they did that image.
Right. They did a. There was some. I think Pat Broderick even did some.
Mm.
Wow. Wow, you can burn $7 million a year publishing comics. A few, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, if some of these like Boom has a huge staff. Where's that? Which one was it? Once in Future? Like, where is it this one that's got the whole staff in it? Discover your one. Some of these little companies have huge staffs because they're in LA and they're trying to sell comics. They're not all in here. I was looking at one last week. I can't remember what it was, but it had this staff of like 25 people. And it's like, that's crazy. They had like, 5 editors, 5 assistant editors. I'm like, they're like a small company. One of these, like Boom or something. I can't even remember. I was like, how do they do that? Because they're part of some other thing that they're looking to sell movie stuff, I think.
Mm-hmm. But that's not the case with IDW because they don't own the properties.
Right. All their stuff is licensed. So, yeah, Dark Horse lost all their Fox-based movie license thanks to Disney. Yeah, but a book-sized graphic novel from Dark Horse lately, but are still Dark Horse is still publishing comics. Boom. Yeah, they're the ones with that big staff, I think. Yeah, the Dark Horse is still publishing comics. They still have their Black Hammer stuff is still coming out. Their Hellboy stuff is still coming out. Usually every week in my final order cutoff, I see 7 or 8 Dark Horse comics, but I think some of them are multiple covers. It's hard. I'll have to look next time and see. But yeah, Dark Horse just got sold too. A video game company bought them. I read one person say that no, Yojimbo is they're at IDW, right? Are they the ones? Yeah, it's IDW. Usagi. Let me see. Are they ones with the big staff? They got a ton of people, but publisher soon. This isn't the one I'm thinking of. But yeah, Usagi is at IDW. I'm guessing Usagi is IDW because IDW wanted to put it in color. Otherwise, he probably. I imagine if Dark Horse wanted to put it in color, he'd be with Dark Horse still. Good evening, 62 Lefty Blues. I wonder if Tim is going to get snowed in again this weekend. We got a big storm coming, but I don't know if it's going to hit him. We'll have to see.
Tim apparently has time. He now has time to go on Graphic Man because he was there this week as well.
Ah, must be at the right time for him.
Well, yeah. I mean, we started at 8.
Yep.
So.
Yep. The right time for him.
The thing is that there's already 9 of us at one time in the stream.
What was that?
There's already 9 of us in the stream.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, so the guests besides me and Tim, we had Jimbo, we had Charlton66, we had Captain Strangelove, we had Eric Breen, we had Classic Comic Collector. So yeah, we have a lot of in Dr. Silver Age.
Yeah, Stan Sakai is one of those people everybody says nice things about. He's in the John Romita category. Paolo's on the good medicine. That's what loosens him up and gets him talking.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do a read, rip, and slab. Let's see what I have.
Let's do it.
I think I've got some more modern ones. Where is it? Let's share my entire screen. Let's bring up, get out of there. You're in the way. There we go. Actually, you know what I have to do? I'm doing this wrong. I am doing this wrong. Let me stop sharing for a second. I've got to bring this into the same window. Otherwise, it doesn't see it. Let's see. We go from there to there. There we go. I use multiple desktops. And if it's not on the same desktop as StreamYard, it messes everything up. Share. Share screen. Window. There we go. Now I can share that window and come back here myself. There we go. This is the Image Comics from 2008 that I never got. Casanova 14, Astounding Wolfman number 6, and Gut Wrencher number 3. This is the era when I could find a lot to buy. I just had started buying, I still got my regular Usagi Yojimbo and anything that had been around for a while, but I couldn't find any good new comics to buy. So I was like buying collected editions and things. Comic Crack's already got it done. He's going to read Gut Wrencher, rip Wolverine, and slab Casanova because I've read it already. Rip Wolfman, pardon me.
I'm going to read Casanova, rip Wolfman, and slab Gut Wrencher.
Why are you slabbing Gut Wrencher?
Like the cover.
Okay. Oh, that's Image's shadow line, too. I don't even remember Gut Wrencher in the least. Whoa. The Casanova cover is great looking. Slab it and rip that guy and read Wolf. Wolfman is like Robert Kirkman, right?
Yeah, one of the ideas that didn't make it.
Right. I've seen him in... Gut Wrencher looks terrible. That looks like one of those super violent. I don't know who did it. Yeah, he doesn't remember those. I remember. I think I may have read a Casanova. I'm not sure.
I remember Casanova coming out. I think this was the thing that put Matt Fraction on the map.
It could have been. I think I remember. I may have read a Casanova that came after this, and it made no impression. So I'm going to rip that one. Oh, which one am I? I'm going to. Maybe I'm not going to rip that one. I kind of like that cover. All right, I'm going to slab Casanova because I think I like that cover best, even though I don't like it that much. I don't like it enough to slab it in real life, but in this game, I'm going to slab Casanova, read Wolfman, and rip Gut-Wrencher. I will never know what Gut-Wrencher is.
I think Wolfman was a failed pitch for bringing back Man Wolf.
Casanova was pretty fun. The art was great. Yeah, I remember Casanova always catching my eye, but I never picked it up. Casanova was very USSR 40s propaganda. Oh, now I see what you're talking about. That's probably what attracted me to the cover. It's very high designy too.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's a crow and a bird's wing, or it could be a hand. But yeah, I remember Casanova always catching my eye, and I had kind of read a little Matt Fraction at that point. But I think it was like 4 years later that he did some more Casanova stuff that it caught my, or it was a trade of Casanova that I may have picked up and read. But time flies. 2000, when did these come out? 2008? Oh, we're coming up. These are 14 years old just this year. 14. Wow, 2008 was 14 years ago. That's funny that was just today. I started listening to Brazilian Twins, Fabio and Gabriel Ba stuff in Cat. Okay. I started listening to a Howard Stern show from 2008. I just put one on. Have you ever heard the Howard Stern show?
Not for a while.
It's I said radio. I've been listening to it for 30 years now. Holy cow. And I just put on like a random old one from 2008. It happened to be one from the day after Heath Ledger died.
Oh.
And I was just like, wow, time just keeps marching on. Talking about all sorts of stuff that's 14 years old. Jared, I can see you doing an interpretation of that cover in your that sort of graphic design style suits me. So that's probably why I ended up slabbing that one after giving it a look. How you doing there, Paolo? You holding up, or should we?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, can we go another half an hour, or? He's ready. He's ready. The last comic I got this week is another one I worked on, Monster Kill Squad, number 3 of 4. And the title tells you, nice bad idea back cover. The title tells you it all. And that they go out and they kill monsters. Monsters have broken over into our world and are coming back more and more. And these are the people who are killing them. And it's by what do we got here? Christos Gage, Tomas Giarello, and Diego Rodriguez. And the art is terrific. And the coloring is terrific. And I've got a production flaw in mine. I don't know if you can see it. There's a line, there's a fold in the paper. There's a flaw in the paper. So through, let's see, 1, 2, 3 or 4 pages, I got a line through it. I don't know if you can, let's see if we can see it there. Nope, can't quite see it.
Nope.
Not on the video. The video's correcting for it, but there's like a white line. You know how sometimes the paper gets folded up on itself a little bit? That's what happened to my issue of Monster Kill Squad. Production error. But good. It's fun. This one is just fast-paced action fun. They got some MacGuffin they're chasing. Some years ago, Pandora's box opened up monsters on the world, and eventually they got it and broke up Pandora's box and hid them in 7 parts of the globe, and now a bunch of monsters are tracking down the part. Not exactly a story you haven't heard before about hiding the magic MacGuffin in 7 places. And but it's well done. Well done art and some solid writing. And then it ends with this one was pretty interesting. Some Save Now is the name of the story. And sometimes they give you stories. Like this is an 8-page story that's really an introduction to a bigger story. And this is a team of, I guess you'd call them superhero guys. They're whatever. They fight villains. It looks like whatever they do. They got superpowers. They fight. I don't know if they call them heroes or the military guys. But the guy the story is named after, Save Now, the leader of the team. What's his name? Saver. His name is Saver, Saver. Yeah. And his superpower is he can go back in time to save points. So if they're fighting a battle and they lose the battle, he can go back in time to the beginning of the battle and fight it over again. He resets time. The problem is he can't go forward in time. So if he goes back, if he goes back 10 minutes, he lives those 10 minutes again. But if he has to go back 3 years, he's got to live those 3. He's got to go through those 3 years again. But he uses the power mostly in battle. But the end of the story actually is the kicker is he shows up in this post-apocalyptic world, and whoever he's with here, his crew, it says 1 year later, somewhere in the American Midwest, and there's just wreckage everywhere. And he's actually tied up by his own crew who are saying, you got to save us, go back in time. And he's like, you don't understand. What did he say? I won't, not again, not anymore. I told you I've been going back. I've been trying to stop the apocalypse. It can't be done. I can't do it. I've gone back 1 year. I've gone back 10 years over and over again. I can't change it no matter what we do. This is as good as it gets. So I found that an interesting little story. I don't know if it's going to open up into bigger stories or not, but that was a fun little Saver couldn't save it. He tried to save the world many times over many decades and couldn't do it. It always ended up in the apocalypse. Speaking of your style, that the part of Black Hole where he meets the artist woman, her style reminds me of your Busted Brush Monster art a bit, Jared. Busted Brush Monster. Yeah. I think Charles Burns reminds me of my own art sometimes too, because we both kind of put down very definite brush lines. He kind of does more hatching than me, but it's very kind of defined, black and white, definite brush lines. So that kind of appeals to me. Mm-hmm. So did you read any comics this week besides that one you showed us earlier? I've been reading a little bit of where is it? Hicksville. I've been getting through more and more of this. Mm-hmm. This is the one that takes place in a little town in New Zealand that worships comics. And it finally turned into a real story about a third of the way in. I'm about halfway through. This is one I've just been picking up and reading a chapter of here and there because it's not really demanding I read it. It's when it's not plot based, it's not like a page turner. So I'm like, I can read it later. And I read it once way back 20 years ago. But it's just kind of a slice of life in a place where everybody reads comics, and you get little examples of their comics. And I think we get some. They mention, of course, all the big. They mention Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko because they're like, and I think they even in this world, they even paid like Kirby and Ditko to make comics just for them, for their New Zealand town. So there's like lost masterpieces by some of the greatest comic artists who the rest of the world doesn't know about. Well, it's got some nice artwork in it. Who is this by? Dylan Harlaw. But it's a solid, late 90s, early 2000s indie comic. And I have been reading that other Gatsby book. Did I show that last week? No, I don't think you saw. I got a little more into this one. I think it was only Scott I showed this one to. Yet another Great Gatsby graphic novel adaptation I found.
Mm-hmm.
But this one is Australian. And it's from before The Great Gatsby was public domain in the US and England. It says specifically on it, you can't sell this in the USA or the UK. So, and it's this weird, whoops, I lost my bookmark. It's done in this photo album style with The Great Gatsby is a seahorse, and Daisy is this, I don't know, strange round-headed chick thing. So it's done in this really, I actually was liking it a whole lot. There's like all sorts of anthropomorphic animals and fantasy animals in it too. So it's The Great Gatsby text, a lot, most of it. So Nick is this fish frog-like character with antenna. I don't know what he's supposed to be. But I think I liked this better than the two other graphic novels I read this year. Not as good as the comic that's coming out right now, but it's a pretty interesting take on the novel to make them all these weird little things. Did any of those Great Gatsby graphic novels make it over to Portugal?
Didn't see any.
You'd probably have to go on Amazon to get them or something.
Yeah. There might be one. I mean, if I can go to a Fnac megastore, might have one. I tried reading digital editions of Marvel Epic collections.
Yeah.
The thing is, with almost 500 pages in digital, not a fun read. Then I have to go back and.
I'm completely a hoarder with digital Marvel Epic collections, because when they go on sale for like $4 for an Epic collection, I'll buy a few. That's what I did in December, but I've never read them. They're just there on my Kindle if I ever want to read it. It's digital hoarding is all it is. It doesn't take up any room, only costs a few bucks. Oh, that was recommended by our guest artist in our Portuguese monthly show. Oh, that was the Black Hole. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, Hicksville.
What was that?
Hicksville.
Hicksville. Ah, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't make the show because my throat was still not working. It's that Portuguese show we do that Gore Vidal always shows up, and that's what we're talking about.
Oh, good. Filling that space for Portuguese folks. Yep. And we always have artists available. That's cool. Hicksville. Yeah. I haven't heard anyone mention Hicksville in a long time. Like I said, it was in the early 2000s, it was a pretty popular little book among the indie crowd, but I don't think it's that. Blankets was even bigger than Hicksville. I never hear that one mentioned. Have you heard of who did that one? Craig Thompson, Blankets?
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't heard that one mentioned in a lot of years. It's weird how indie books can get a little bit of popularity and then fade away.
Yeah, no continuity, nothing to reference.
They don't become. They don't become, and it's like everybody who recommends books recommends like Marvel and DC stuff is still around. Like if someone to say, oh, you have to read this book, they'll give you The Dark Knight, or they'll give you, I don't know, something like that from Marvel or DC. They won't give you Blankets. They won't give you It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken. Habibi is even greater. Yeah, because like if you were to recommend to somebody who has never really read comics something to read, what would you give them?
Hard choice. Of course, it depends on the person, but
Yeah, it depends on the person, but like I always say, I wouldn't give them Watchmen because that's kind of too advanced.
Always easy to start with humor.
Yeah, you could always what popped into my head was Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah. There was a
not a comic book, but if you don't like Calvin and Hobbes, you're not going to like any comics ever.
Yeah, there was a French strip collection about a biker bar called Joe's Bar.
Okay,
it was fun.
The Munoz?
No, who did Joe's Bar?
I remember seeing ads for it. I maybe even read a little of it back in the 80s, like from Fantagraphics or something. I got two volumes from a 3-part phone book sized collection of illustrated classic novels. I remember seeing a cool Great Gatsby section in one. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, the artist signed as Bar 2.
Var 2?
Bar 2. His real name was Christian de Bar.
Let's see. What would I give? See, I'd love to give someone Clyde Fans, but it's too big. Oh, if you know what, those Rick Geary true crime graphic novels, I bet you could give to a lot of people. Have you ever read those?
No, never saw them.
There's a lot of true crime fans out there, and they're very sort of clear and straightforward and well drawn with Gru. I don't think you could give Gru to your average person. They wouldn't get it. Humor's always I think Gru is, I don't know. I think Gru might be too niche for your average person. I think, let's see. Batman Year One actually might be an easy one.
If they can get into Richmond Lewis's colors?
I think they can. Haven't they recolored that since then?
They have.
I have the original colors in the first hardback, but I haven't seen the other stuff. But it's like it would be, yeah. I think those Rick Geary ones, out of all the comics in my collection, due to the fact that true crime is so popular now, those Rick Geary ones might be the easiest sell to somebody who's never read comics, just a random person, because you can tell them it's true crime and they know what that means. Robert Crumb is snatched. Perfect. We'll scare him away. My first hose is getting old-fashioned. Indian Summer by Pratt. For his first choice. Okay. That might be a little too racy for America. There's nudity in Indian Summer, right?
Yeah.
That might shock a lot of America who thinks comics are just for children.
But it's not hardcore nudity. It's just nudity.
You don't understand
But
how people are over here.
Yeah, I know. They just banned mouse from some library in Tennessee.
Yes. Because there was naked mice in it. Yeah, sure. That was the reason. Yeah, Death of Superman. You know what? Death of Superman. You're joking, but I think Death of Superman might work better than a lot of things.
Yeah, it's an easy read. I mean, it's not like maybe you need to explain who the Justice League are, but maybe you don't because it's not a Justice League story. They're just in it. It's a Superman story.
Gus tells us, nah, there's hardcore stuff in Indian Summer. Especially for over here. Like nudity would put if you were to hand a book with nudity, comic book with nudity in it to a random American person, the first thing they'd do is go, "Oh, there's nudity in this." That is the first comment they would have. That's how, even if they didn't mind it, even if it would not be able to go, they would not be able to go past it and not remark on it.
Mm-hmm.
Because kind of that's how, and I don't even want to use the word shocking, remarkable it would be. Art was on CNN for a quick chat while watching to see him absolutely perplexed. Yeah, I'd heard that. The Death of Superman, ironically, was tons of people's first comic they didn't open. Yeah, but I think Death of Superman at least has a definitive ending. It's got a beginning, middle, and end structure. I think you can hand Death of Superman to your average person, and they'll at least be able to read it and understand it. They may not make them want to read another comic right away, but they'll get it. They'll get, this is a Superman comic.
Yeah, there's one thing that we think we need to do when we're recruiting people to the hobby, is that we want them to read one comic once and become addicted immediately. Not only addicted to comics, but addicted to the way we read and buy comics.
I want to give them one comic once and at least want them to read another comic someday.
Yeah. We're kind of we're formatted to think that we need to get them to do. Okay, so you like this comic? Now you need to buy 20 comics a month and go back every week. And like, no, I don't. That scares people away. We don't want to do that.
That's like, I actually learned to do that with music. Because you'll always run into people who say, "Oh, I always wanted to try out that band or that person." Like for example, Tom Waits. I'm a big Tom Waits fan. I listened to Tom Waits over the years, and occasionally people would say to me, "Oh, I always wanted to check out Tom Waits." Well, in the age of MP3s, you could people would do this too. Someone would say, "Oh, I always wanted to check out, Tom Waits," and somebody would give them every Tom Waits song album ever as MP3, and they'll just be like completely overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So what I would do was I made a playlist about as long as a CD, an hour, 20 Tom Waits songs. When somebody would say, "Oh, I want to check out Tom Waits," I say, "Here's a 20-song playlist. Listen to this. It's as long as a CD." And they could do that. But if it's and I've had that happen to me too. I'd go, "Oh, I always wanted to check them out," and somebody would give me 15 albums worth of someone. And I'd be like, forget it. Saga had my wife hooked for a bit. Never went further, though. Yeah. Did you get her the new Saga that came out this week? Habibi or Berlin are too big. From Hell is too dense. Asterios is too crafty. Three Shadows is a bit of a downer. Here's a great recent year for all ages that would translate to After All. I was thinking about Asterios. I think Asterios might be okay. It is very crafty, but if you're a newbie, you won't notice the craft. It's that kind of craft. It's you have to be sort of he does things like Asterios is always in cool colors. His wife is in the warmer colors. The art style will change when they're arguing. He'll get more cubist. She'll get a little more expressionist. And there's stuff in the. He always drew Asterios's profile with a ellipse template, so it would stay the same and rigid. And hers was freehand, and it's very deep into the craft. But you don't have to know all that stuff to appreciate Asterios polyp. I think it's well made enough that a person could read it and enjoy the story about this guy's life, and then you can tell them about the craft later if they're into it. It's nothing truly great. Very. Oh, that's the after all. Yeah, it doesn't have to be great to be people hooked. It'd be too weird for someone new to comics. They wouldn't know how to approach it. Asterios polyp might be too weird. I don't know, but it might be Asterios polyp might be more normal than we think, because it's just the story about a guy. It's a man's life story. So people might be more used to that than we give them credit for, because we're not used to that in comics. We're used to fantasy, adventure, fighting, and sound effects.
Which is going to turn off most people.
Yeah. I've gotten a few people into comics, but they were always licensed and stuff. X-Files, I remember getting an ex-girlfriend into. Walking Dead was another one because a friend liked zombies. Yeah. Walking Dead was a hard sell to the zombie people at first. I talked to a lot of them, a lot of my friends who were, because zombie people expect an explanation. They expect rules. And when you tell them, no, this isn't the zombie movie, this is after the zombie movie, they're like, what are you talking about? So I remember having, when Walking Dead just first became a big hit comic book before it was a TV show, explaining to quite a few of my comic book friends the appeal of Walking Dead, and to my zombie comic book friends who were expecting all-out zombie fighting action, that it's not that kind of zombie story. This is not your father's zombie story.
Still couldn't get into it.
I enjoyed it. But I was there at the beginning, so that was good. Jacob Jabat has the two most read copies of Walking Dead #1 and Walking Dead #2 ever. They should be slabbed specially, because everybody at Marvel read his copies. Yeah, back in Walking Dead first came out, I was still working at Marvel. And Jacob Chabat, who does Mighty Skullboy Army, he's drawn a lot for SpongeBob SquarePants comics. He was working in the bullpen with me back then, and he had bought issues 1 and 2 of The Walking Dead. And he was like, "These are pretty good." And when we got good comics, we used to pass them around to each other. And I got it and really liked it. And like I said, those were the most read. At least 20 people at Marvel read those 2 copies of Walking Dead 1 and 2. And then I started, at that time, Walking Dead #1 was like $20. I was like, there's no way I'm paying $20 for a 3-month-old comic. So I put Walking Dead #3 on my pull list, and I bought it from 3 on. And then I bought the trade when it first came out, so I could read 1 and have 1 and 2. But yeah, I wasn't paying $20 for a comic that came out 2 months ago. No way. I showed them. I didn't get Walking Dead #1. That, after all, it's just a decade-long, long-distance romance story. But told from the reverse temporal order, from the most recent to the oldest action. Great art and works wonderfully. Okay. SpongeBob used to pick that for my son when I was younger. Yeah, fun. And what was funny about the SpongeBob book too is I don't think it's still around, because it was the creator of SpongeBob that kept that going. He bought back the comic book rights from Nickelodeon just so he could keep publishing a SpongeBob comic. Then a few years ago he died young, so I don't know if the SpongeBob comic is still around but it might be. But it was just him. The only reason there was a SpongeBob comic is he wanted a SpongeBob comic, the creator. I found that interesting. All right, we should wrap it up now so Paolo can go to bed and get some rest.
Yeah, back to work tomorrow.
All right. So you guys have a good night out there. It was nice talking to Paolo and chatting with everyone in the chat. We had a good time. Good night, sir. Good night.
Good night.
Night. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. If they do, I'll hit them with a shoe. All right, then. Have a good one. Later. Great to see ya. Dun, dun, dun.